Welcome to my channel, a vlog that brings your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Eclat, turning the city lights outside into bleeding watercolors. I pressed my palm against the cool glass for just a moment, watching the drops race downward, each one a tiny escape I'd never have. The kitchen bell chimed, sharp, insistent, and I jerked away from my brief respite, smoothing down my black apron with trembling fingers. "Table 7 needs water," Marcus hissed, shoving past me with a tray of champagne flutes that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "And smile, for God's sake. You look like someone died." Someone had died. My dreams, maybe. My hope of ever climbing out of this hole I'd been born into. But Marcus didn't care about that, and neither did the glittering crowd of Manhattan's elite who filled Eclat every Friday night, throwing around money like confetti while I calculated whether I could afford both groceries and electricity this month. I grabbed the crystal pitcher, heavy, elegant, worth more than everything I owned, and made my way through the maze of tables. The restaurant hummed with the particular frequency of wealth, low voices discussing mergers and mistresses, the clink of silverware against bone china, Paolo Conte crooning from hidden speakers about sophisticated melancholy. I was a ghost here, invisible except when someone needed their $40 sparkling water refreshed. Table 7 sat in the back corner, the table we reserved for VIPs who valued privacy over being seen. I'd been avoiding it all night, letting Veronica handle it, but she'd disappeared for her smoke break and left me to face whatever titan of industry lurked back there. The scent hit me first as I approached. Expensive cologne, something dark and woody with notes of bergamot and danger, not the cloying sweetness most men wore, trying too hard to prove something. This was subtle, confident, the kind of scent that whispered rather than shouted. Then I saw him. He sat with his back to the wall, always the wall I'd notice later, always positioned to see every entrance, every exit, in a charcoal suit that looked like it had been sewn directly onto his body by Italian tailors, who probably charged more for a consultation than I made in a year. His hair was dark, swept back, silver threading through the temples in that way that made men look distinguished instead of old. He couldn't have been more than 40, but he carried himself with the weight of empires. 2 men flanked the table, standing despite the empty chairs. Security. Their eyes never stopped moving, cataloging threats, measuring distances. One spoke into his wrist, a discreet gesture that sent ice down my spine. I'd seen powerful men before, Eclat catered to them exclusively. But this was different. The air around him seemed compressed, denser, as if gravity itself bent toward him. The other diners gave his table a wide berth without seeming to realize they were doing it, some primal instinct warning them away from apex predators. "Water?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. He didn't look up immediately. He was reading something on his phone, and I watched his jaw tighten, a muscle jumping beneath skin that looked like it had been carved from marble. His hands were broad, masculine, with a single platinum ring on his right hand. No wedding band. And I found myself staring at the way his fingers moved across the screen, controlled and precise. "Leave the picture." His voice was smoke and whiskey, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. Italian, maybe, or something darker, from streets where Romance languages learned to curse. I set the pitcher down, my hands shaking just enough that the water rippled. One of the security guards, the one with the scar bisecting his left eyebrow, watched me with dead eyes, and I knew with sudden certainty that he'd killed people, probably recently. I should have left, should have walked away, returned to the safety of the kitchen, stayed invisible like I'd learned to be. But my heel caught on something. The chair leg, my own clumsy feet, fate itself, and I stumbled forward. The pitcher flew from the table. Time slowed, the way it does in nightmares, and I watched $40 worth of imported sparkling water arc through the air in a perfect, devastating parabola, heading straight for his lap, for that suit that probably cost more than my car. If I'd had a car. I lunged. My body moved before my brain caught up, some stupid instinct to fix things, to prevent disaster, to keep the tenuous thread of my employment from snapping. My hands caught the pitcher mid-flight, water sloshing over the rim and drenching my uniform instead of his Brioni suit. And I found myself sprawled across the table, chest heaving, soaked through, staring directly into eyes that were the color of a storm rolling over the Atlantic. Gray. Cold, absolutely lethal. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, trying to push myself up. But my hand slipped on the wet tablecloth and I crashed forward again, this time colliding with solid muscle and that dangerous cologne that made my head spin. "I didn't mean. I'm sorry, I'm so—" His hand caught my wrist. The touch burned. His fingers wrapped around my arm like a brand. Not painful, but absolutely inescapable, and I froze. A rabbit in the shadow of a wolf. Up close, I could see the details I'd missed from a distance. The small scar above his left eyebrow, the shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his pupils dilated as he looked at me. Really looked at me. I wasn't used to being seen. My whole life had been about being invisible. The scholarship kid at the fancy school, the waitress in the expensive restaurant, the girl from nowhere trying to survive in a city that ate people like me for breakfast. But he saw me. Saw through the dripping hair and soaked uniform and trembling hands to something underneath. Something I didn't even know was there. "You're wet," he said. And there was something in his voice that made the observation feel obscene. Yes, I'm sorry." I was babbling, trying to pull away, but his grip tightened just a fraction, not hurting, never hurting, but absolutely preventing escape. "Giovanni." He said it to the scarred guard, not to me, never breaking eye contact. "Get her a towel. And tell Marcus his waitress just saved me from an unfortunate dry cleaning bill." He knew Marcus's name. Why did he know Marcus's name? The guard disappeared, moving with surprising speed for a man his size, and I was left pinned by that gray gaze, by fingers that felt like they were learning the rhythm of my pulse through my skin. "What's your name?" He asked it quietly, conversationally, as if I wasn't dripping water onto his table, as if his other guard wasn't watching us with the intensity of a man calculating bullet trajectories. "Emma." It came out as a whisper. "Emma Cole. Emma." He repeated it, tasted it, and something in my stomach twisted at the way my name sounded in his mouth. "You have quick reflexes, Emma Cole." "I'm clumsy." The truth escaped before I could stop it. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I should go." "You should stay." It wasn't a suggestion. His thumb moved against my wrist. A slow stroke that made my breath catch. "At least until you're dry." Giovanni returned with a towel, plush, white, probably Egyptian cotton, and draped it over my shoulders. His boss released my wrist, and I stumbled backward, suddenly cold where his hand had been, wrapping the towel around myself like armor. "Thank you," I managed, backing toward the kitchen. I'll send someone else to take your order." "No." That single syllable stopped me mid-retreat. "You'll take my order, Emma. I'd like the lamb, medium rare, and a bottle of the Brunello, the 97, not the 01. I nodded, mute, and fled. The kitchen was chaos, steam and shouting and the clatter of pans, but I barely registered it. My wrist burned where he'd touched me. My uniform clung to my skin, cold and uncomfortable. But underneath the discomfort was something else. Something that felt dangerously like electricity. "What the hell happened to you?" Veronica grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the staff bathroom. "Marcus is losing his shit out there. You dumped water all over Dante fucking Russo?" The name hit me like a physical blow. Dante Russo. Everyone in New York knew that name, even people like me who tried to stay as far from the underworld as possible. Shipping magnate, the newspapers called him. Philanthropist. Art collector. But there were other words whispered in the kitchens and back alleys, words like enforcer, made man, and the one that made my blood run cold, capo. Mob boss. I'd just thrown myself at a mob boss. "I didn't know," I breathed, leaning against the sink, staring at my reflection in the spotted mirror. My face was flushed, my hair plastered to my skull, my eyes too wide and frightened. "Veronica, doesn't matter what you knew." She thrust a dry uniform at me. "Just matters what you do next. Change, fix your face, and for God's sake, don't spill anything else on him. Men like Dante Russo don't forget, Emma. They collect debts." I changed with shaking hands, listening to Veronica's warnings echo in my ears. Don't look him in the eye. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't, under any circumstances, draw attention to yourself again. But it was too late for that. When I returned to table 7 with his lamb, perfectly plated, the smell of rosemary and garlic making my empty stomach clench. He was alone. The guards had moved to nearby tables, giving an illusion of privacy while maintaining their lethal vigilance. He looked up as I approached, and that same intensity hit me like a physical force. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I can't. I'm working." "Sit, Emma." Softer this time, but no less commanding. "Please." The please undid me. I sat, perching on the edge of the chair like a bird ready to fly, the empty tray clutched against my chest like a shield. He cut into his lamb, the knife moving through the meat with surgical precision, and took a bite. Chewed. Swallowed, all while watching me with those storm-gray eyes that seemed to see through skin and bone to the terrified thing underneath. "You're afraid of me," he observed. "No," I lied. His lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. "You're a terrible liar, Emma Cole. It's refreshing. I should go. How long have you worked here?" The question threw me. 8 months. And before that? Why does it matter? Humor me? He took a sip of wine, and I watched his throat work, that single swallow somehow more intimate than anything I'd ever witnessed. "I'm curious about the girl who throws herself across tables to save my suit." "I was in school," I admitted. The words pulled from me against my will. "Columbia. But I had to drop out after my dad got sick. Medical bills. I was saying too much, revealing too much, but something about his attention made me want to confess every secret I'd ever held." "Your father?" "Dead. 6 months ago." The word tasted like ash. Something flickered in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or sympathy. Though I doubted men like him did sympathy. "And your mother?" "She left when I was 12, so it's just me now. Just you," he repeated. And the way he said it made it sound like both a tragedy and an opportunity. He set down his fork, folded his hands, those broad, dangerous hands, on the table. "I'd like to help you, Emma." Warning bells screamed in my head. "I don't need help. Everyone needs help." He reached into his jacket, both guards tensed, hands moving toward concealed weapons before they realized he was just retrieving his wallet, and pulled out a business card, heavy stock, black with silver lettering, a phone number, nothing else. "Call me when you realize that. I can't." "You can." He stood, and I scrambled to my feet, my head barely reaching his shoulder. Up close, he was enormous. Not fat, but solid, built like men who understood violence intimately. "And you will, Emma Cole. Because despite your terrible instincts for self-preservation, you're smart enough to know that opportunities like this don't come twice." He placed the card on the table between us, then did something that stopped my heart. He lifted my hand, the same wrist he'd caught earlier, and pressed his lips to my pulse point. The kiss burned. It was brief, barely there, but I felt it in every nerve ending, felt it race through my bloodstream like poison or salvation. "Until we meet again," he murmured against my skin, and then he was gone, the guards falling into formation around him, the restaurant parting before them like the Red Sea before Moses. I stood there, frozen, staring at the black card on the table, at the ghost of his touch on my wrist, at the half-eaten lamb that represented more protein than I had consumed in a week. Marcus appeared at my elbow, his face purple with rage. "What the hell did you say to him? He left a $5,000 tip, Emma. 5,000 for a goddamn lamb chop. What did you—" But I wasn't listening. I was staring at that card, at the promise and threat it represented, knowing with absolute certainty that picking it up would change everything. I picked it up. Outside, I heard the sound of a car engine. Powerful, expensive, the kind that purred rather than roared. And I moved to the window just in time to see a black Mercedes with tinted windows pull away from the curb, flanked by 2 identical SUVs. My reflection stared back at me from the glass, pale and frightened, with a business card clutched in trembling fingers, and a mark on her wrist that felt like a brand. I should throw it away, I told myself. Should forget this ever happened, go back to my invisible life, stay safe in my poverty and anonymity. But that night, lying in my studio apartment with the heat barely working and the neighbors screaming through paper-thin walls, I pulled out the card and stared at those silver numbers until they burned into my retinas. What kind of man kisses a stranger's wrist and leaves $5,000 for causing him no damage at all? What kind of man looks at a drowned rat of a waitress and sees something worth pursuing? And why, despite every survival instinct I'd honed over 24 years of struggle? Did I want so desperately to call that number and find out? I didn't call. For 3 days, I carried that card in my apron pocket, felt it burning against my hip through every shift, every degrading interaction with customers who snapped their fingers at me like I was a trained dog. The numbers haunted me. When I closed my eyes, I saw them printed on the inside of my eyelids in silver that glowed like moonlight. Tuesday morning, my landlord knocked on my door at 6 a.m., his fist pounding hard enough to rattle the cheap frame. I knew what he wanted before I opened it. Mr. Kowalski had kind eyes once, before his wife died, and the city hardened him into something sharp and mean. "Rent's due, Emma. 2 weeks late now." "I know. I'm sorry. I just need. He spat the word like it disgusted him. Everyone needs. I need too. I need $1,500 by Friday, or you're out. I got 3 people waiting for this place. $1,500. I had $237 in my bank account. My next paycheck wouldn't come for another week. And even then, after taxes and the money I sent to pay down Dad's medical debt, I'd barely scraped together $800. The door closed in my face, and I stood there in my threadbare pajamas, men's boxers, and a Columbia t-shirt I'd kept from my old life, staring at nothing. The card felt like it was vibrating in my pocket. No, I wouldn't. I couldn't. Men like Dante Russo didn't offer help without expecting something in return, and I'd seen enough Lifetime movies to know how those transactions ended. Pretty Woman was a fairy tale. Reality was darker, uglier, paid in flesh and dignity. I went to work. Eclat looked different in daylight. Less magical, more mundane. The windows I'd pressed my palm against Friday night now showed every smudge, every fingerprint. Marcus had me polishing silverware in the back, punishment for whatever he thought I'd done to earn that obscene tip. Veronica kept shooting me worried glances, but she didn't ask questions. In our world, you didn't ask questions about money that appeared like magic. Emma. Marcus's voice cut through the mindless rhythm of polish, cloth, shine, repeat. Phone. Says it's urgent. My heart stopped. Nobody called me at work. Nobody called me anywhere. I had exactly 3 contacts in my phone. Marcus, Veronica, and the hospital billing department. The phone was ancient, corded, hanging on the kitchen wall between health code violations. I picked it up with hands that had started shaking again. Hello? Miss Cole. The voice was professional, female, with a crisp British accent that suggested expensive education and even more expensive employers. Mr. Russo would like to extend an invitation for lunch today. 1 o'clock at Maria. A car will collect you at 12:45. I'm working. It's been arranged with your employer. The car will be outside Eclat at 12:45. Please don't be late, Miss Cole. Mr. Russo values punctuality. The line went dead. I stood there, receiver humming with dial tone, while Marcus stared at me with an expression caught between terror and calculation. What did you do? He whispered. Emma, what the hell did you do? I don't know. I breathed, and it was the truth. At 12:45, I stood outside Eclat in my only decent outfit, black slacks I'd bought for Dad's funeral, and a cream blouse with a small stain near the hem that I'd tried to hide with strategic tucking. The November wind cut through the thin fabric, and I wrapped my arms around myself, wondering if I should run. I could run. Could disappear into the subway, lose myself in the crowds, go back to my invisible life. The Mercedes appeared like it had materialized from smoke, black, sleek, windows so dark they looked like portals to another dimension. It pulled up to the curb with barely a whisper, and the back door opened from inside. Giovanni sat in the driver's seat, his scarred face impassive. The passenger compartment was empty, just cream leather and the lingering scent of that cologne that had haunted my dreams. Miss Cole. Giovanni's voice was surprisingly gentle. Mr. Russo is waiting. I got in. God help me, I got in. The interior was warm, temperature controlled, with soft music playing from hidden speakers, something classical I didn't recognize. There was a bottle of water in the cup holder, San Pellegrino, the same kind we served at Eclat for $40. A note was propped against it, written in strong, angular handwriting. Drink. You looked thirsty Friday night. I picked up the bottle with trembling hands and drank. It tasted like wealth, like the life I'd glimpsed in my Columbia days before reality came crashing down. The bubbles burned my throat, and I wondered if this was how Eve felt, taking that first bite of apple. Maria wasn't far. Everything in Manhattan happened within a few square miles, like the city was designed to keep the powerful close and the desperate closer. We pulled up to a restaurant I'd walked past 100 times, never daring to even look in the windows. Michelin-starred, the kind of place where reservations required connections and cash in equal measure. Giovanni opened my door, offered his hand to help me out. His palm was calloused, scarred. A working man's hand despite the expensive suit. "Third floor. Private dining room. He's expecting you." The hostess took one look at me and knew who I was here for. She led me through the main dining room, all white tablecloths and hushed conversations, to an elevator I hadn't known existed. "The third floor," she'd said. I didn't know restaurants had third floors. The elevator opened directly into a room that made my breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, the trees aflame with late autumn color. The space was intimate. One table, already set with china so delicate it looked like it would shatter if you breathed wrong. And there, standing by the window with a phone pressed to his ear, was Dante Russo. He looked different in daylight, harder, somehow. The silver in his hair caught the sun, and I could see the lines around his eyes that spoke of late nights and hard decisions. He wore a navy suit today, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone to reveal a triangle of tanned skin and dark hair. He turned as the elevator closed behind me, ending his call with a single word in Italian that sounded like a command. Those storm-gray eyes found mine, and I watched something like satisfaction flicker across his face. "Emma." He said my name like it was something precious. "You came." Did I have a choice? The words escaped before I could stop them, sharp with the fear I'd been swallowing since Friday. His smile was slow, dangerous. "There's always a choice. You could have run. Could have called the police, reported me for harassment, could have changed your number, moved apartments, disappeared into the city's cracks." He moved toward me, each step deliberate, predatory. "But you didn't. You got in the car, you came upstairs. You chose this, Emma Cole. I don't even know what this is. Then let me explain." He pulled out a chair, the one facing the view, of course, while he took the seat with his back to the wall, the position that let him see the door, the windows, every possible threat. "Sit, eat, and listen." I sat because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. A waiter appeared. Where had he come from? With plates of food I couldn't name. Crudo something, with citrus and olive oil that smelled like the Mediterranean coast I'd never seen. Dante watched me, waiting, until I picked up my fork with shaking hands and took a bite. It exploded on my tongue. Salt, acid, fat. All in perfect balance. I'd forgotten food could taste like this, like something other than fuel to keep my body moving through the motions of survival. "Your landlord," Dante said, cutting into his own fish with precise movements, "is threatening eviction, $1,500 by Friday." The fork clattered from my hand. "How do you—" "I know everything about you, Emma." He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. "Your father was Thomas Cole, insurance adjuster, died of pancreatic cancer after a 6-month battle that bankrupted what little you had. Your mother is Rebecca Cole, née Martinez, currently living in Phoenix with her second husband and his 3 children. She sends you $50 every Christmas and doesn't call on your birthday. You dropped out of Columbia in your junior year, English literature major, 3.8 GPA. You owe $47,000 in student loans and another $32,000 in medical debt. Your apartment is 400 square feet, heat included but rarely working, in a building that should have been condemned 15 years ago. You eat 1 meal a day, usually whatever the kitchen at Eclat is throwing out. You haven't bought new clothes in 8 months. You walk 45 minutes to work because you can't afford the subway." He paused, took a sip of wine. Did I miss anything? Horror washed over me in waves. You investigated me. Of course I did. I investigate everyone who interests me. And you, Emma Cole, interest me very much. Why? It came out as a whisper. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. Don't ever say that again. The words cracked like a whip, and I flinched. He took a breath, visibly controlling himself. You threw yourself across a table to save a stranger's suit. Do you understand how rare that is? How extraordinary. In my world, people would push their own mothers in front of bullets for half of what I spend on dinner. But you risked your job, your dignity, for a man you didn't know, expecting nothing in return. I just didn't want to get fired. Another lie. He leaned forward, and I could smell that cologne again, could see the flecks of darker gray in his irises. You did it because it's who you are. Selfless, stupid, but selfless. And that... He reached across the table, his fingers brushing my wrist where he'd kissed it, where I could still feel the ghost of his lips. That is worth everything. I jerked my hand back. What do you want from me? I want to help you. Nobody helps for free, especially not men like you, men like me. He smiled, and it wasn't kind. Say it, Emma. Say what I am. Let's not pretend you don't know. You're a criminal. The word hung between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. Yes. No denial, no deflection. I'm a criminal. I've killed people. I've hurt people. I've built an empire on blood and fear, and the willingness to do things that would make you vomit. But I'm also a man who pays his debts. And you saved me from an inconvenience. That means I owe you. A $5,000 tip seems like enough. That wasn't payment. That was a gift. He pulled a check from his jacket pocket, slid it across the table. The amount made my vision blur. $50,000. This is payment. For what? My voice was barely audible over the pounding of my heart. For your company. 3 months. You'll live in one of my properties. Security provided. You'll eat 3 meals a day. You'll finish your degree. I've already spoken to Columbia about reinstatement. In exchange, you'll accompany me to events when I require it. You'll be seen with me. You'll smile and look beautiful and make people believe that Dante Russo is capable of attracting someone like you. Young, innocent, untouched by my world. You want to buy me. I want to employ you. There's a difference. Is there? I stared at the check, at the number that could erase every problem I had, every debt. Every night I'd cried myself to sleep, wondering how I'd survive another day. What else? What else would you expect? His jaw tightened. Nothing you don't freely offer. I'm not interested in unwilling partners, Emma. If you come to my bed, it will be because you want to be there, not because you're paid, not because you owe me, because you want me the way I already want you. The confession hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to examine. I don't even know you. Then get to know me. 3 months. If at the end you want to walk away, you can. The money is yours regardless. No strings, no obligations. I'll have my lawyers draw up a contract. Everything in writing, witnessed and notarized. You'll have protection, Emma. My protection. And in this city, that's worth more than any check I could write. I looked out at Central Park, at the city spreading beyond it like a glittering disease. 3 months. $50,000. A chance to finish my degree, to climb out of the hole that had been my entire existence. Why me? I asked again, because I still couldn't understand it. You could have anyone. Models, actresses, women who wouldn't humiliate you. You think you'd humiliate me? He laughed, sharp and bitter. Emma, you're the only genuine thing I've encountered in 15 years. Everyone else wants something. Power, money, connection. But you? You just wanted to keep your minimum wage job. He trailed off, something vulnerable flickering across his face before his mask slammed back into place. That's worth every risk. The waiter appeared again, clearing plates I'd barely touched, replacing them with something that smelled like heaven. Dante gestured for me to eat, and I did, mechanically, while my mind spun through scenarios and consequences. 3 months. I could survive 3 months of anything. I'd survived worse. There's one more thing. His voice had gone cold, businessman cold. You can't tell anyone about our arrangement. Not your coworkers, not friends, not family. As far as the world is concerned, we met. We fell for each other. You moved in with me because you're young and impulsive and in love. Can you do that, Emma? Can you lie convincingly? I thought about the lies I'd told myself every day. That I was fine. That I'd survive. That someday things would get better. Yes, I whispered. I can lie. Good. He pulled out another card, this one white, with an address in Tribeca written in that same angular handwriting. Be there tomorrow at noon. Bring everything you want to keep. Everything else will be provided. Tomorrow? My voice pitched high with panic. That's not enough time. It's plenty of time. Unless you're having second thoughts, was I? This was insane. Dangerous. Every instinct screamed that I should run, should get as far from Dante Russo as possible, should choose noble poverty over this gilded trap. But nobility didn't pay rent, instincts didn't finish degrees or erase debt, and running just meant staying in the same place, slowly drowning in a city that didn't care if I lived or died. I picked up the check. The paper felt heavy, weighted with more than ink and numbers. 3 months, I said, and then I'm free. 3 months, he agreed. And then you're free. If that's what you still want. Something in his tone made me shiver. Not fear, exactly, but recognition. He didn't believe I'd leave, thought 3 months would be enough to trap me, to make me need whatever safety and security he offered enough to stay. He was probably right. I should go. I stood on legs that felt like water. I have to. There's things I need to. Giovanni will drive you home. Pack tonight. Sleep. Tomorrow, your new life begins. He stood too, moving around the table with that predatory grace until he was close enough to touch. Emma. His hand came up, cupping my jaw, thumb brushing my cheekbone with unexpected gentleness. I'll take care of you. I promise. No one will hurt you. No one will touch you. You'll be safe. Safe, I repeated, the word foreign in my mouth. When had I last felt safe? He bent, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His lips brushed my forehead, chaste, almost paternal, except for the way his breath stuttered when he touched me. Until tomorrow, Tesoro. The elevator doors closed on his face, on those gray eyes that promised salvation and damnation in equal measure, and I slumped against the wall, the check clutched in my shaking hand. What had I just agreed to? I didn't sleep. How could I? I sat on my lumpy mattress, the same one I'd dragged from a curb 3 years ago, stained and broken but free, and stared at my life reduced to what I could carry. It fit in 2 garbage bags and a backpack. 24 years of existence, and I could move it all in a single subway trip. Except I wouldn't be taking the subway anymore. At 11:45 the next morning, I stood on the curb outside my building, former building, with Mr. Kowalski glaring at me from his first-floor window. I'd paid him the rent I owed, in cash, bills I'd gotten from the bank after depositing that impossible check. The teller had looked at me like I'd robbed someone, had called her manager, had verified the funds 3 times before finally, reluctantly, giving me access to money I still couldn't quite believe was mine. The Mercedes appeared exactly at noon. Giovanni emerged, took my pathetic bags without comment or judgment, loaded them into the trunk with the same care he'd probably used transporting bodies. I wondered if he had transported bodies, if those scarred hands had done things that would haunt my nightmares. Miss Cole. He opened the back door, and I climbed in, leaving behind the only home I'd known since Dad died. The drive to Tribeca took 20 minutes through Manhattan traffic that parted before us like we were royalty. Or like people recognized the car, knew what it meant, knew to get out of the way. We pulled up to a building I'd walked past before, one of those converted warehouses with floor-to-ceiling windows and doormen in uniforms that cost more than my monthly salary. Had cost. Past tense. Because I didn't have a salary anymore. I had an arrangement. Giovanni led me through a lobby that belonged in a museum. Marble floors, modern art I didn't understand. A massive flower arrangement that probably cost more than my rent had been. The doorman nodded to Giovanni with the respect men give to other dangerous men, and we rode the elevator in silence to the top floor, the penthouse. Of course it was the penthouse. The doors opened directly into the apartment. No hallway, no neighbors, just sudden immersion into a space so enormous I actually gasped. Windows everywhere, flooding the room with light, exposed brick and polished concrete, furniture that looked sculptural and uncomfortable, art on the walls that I recognized from my art history classes. Originals, not prints, casually displayed like posters in a dorm room. Mr. Russo will be here at 7. Giovanni set my bags down in the entrance. They looked obscene against the pristine floors, garbage bags full of garbage in a palace. The bedroom is through there. Kitchen is fully stocked. If you need anything, there's a phone by the door. Press 1 for the concierge, 2 for security, 3 for Mr. Russo's office. And what number for escape? The words slipped out, sharp with hysteria I'd been swallowing since yesterday. Giovanni's scarred face softened almost imperceptibly. There is no escape, Miss Cole. Not anymore. But if there's any consolation, this is the most beautiful prison in New York. He left, and I was alone. I walked through the apartment like a ghost haunting someone else's life. The bedroom was larger than my entire studio had been, dominated by a bed so big I could have fit 5 of me across it. The sheets looked like they'd never been slept in. Hotel crisp, blindingly white. A bathroom connected, all marble and chrome, with a shower that had 6 different heads, and a tub deep enough to drown in. The closet was empty, except for a note. Bergdorf's, tomorrow, 10 a.m. I unpacked my garbage bags into that empty closet, hung my 3 shirts and 2 pairs of jeans on hangers that probably cost more than the clothes themselves, and tried not to cry at how pathetic it all looked. The afternoon crawled by. I made coffee in a machine I didn't know how to operate, burned myself on steam, finally gave up and drank water from the tap. Filtered, naturally, probably imported from some Norwegian glacier. I tried to read, but the words blurred. Tried to watch TV, but the screen was so large and complicated I couldn't figure out how to turn it on. Finally, I just sat by the windows and watched the city move below me, all those people living their normal lives while I floated above them in a glass tower, waiting for a man who owned me. He didn't own me. We had a contract, an arrangement. 3 months. I repeated it like a prayer. At exactly 7 o'clock I heard the elevator. My heart kicked into overdrive, and I stood, smoothing down my nicest shirt, the cream one, stain carefully hidden, wishing I'd worn something better, wishing I was someone better, someone who belonged in places like this. Dante stepped into the apartment, and the space that had felt enormous suddenly contracted around him. He wore the same navy suit from yesterday, but he'd loosened his tie, undone another button, and I could see the exhaustion around his eyes. He looked like a man who'd been making life or death decisions all day and was tired of it. His eyes found mine, and something in his face eased. Emma. Just my name, but the way he said it made me feel like I was something good at the end of a bad day. You came. I said I would. People say many things. They rarely follow through. He shrugged out of his jacket, draped it over a chair with the carelessness of someone who had a dozen identical ones. Have you eaten? I'm not hungry. A lie. I was starving. But eating felt like accepting this, like admitting I was here by choice rather than necessity. His eyes narrowed. You haven't eaten since yesterday at Maria. Don't lie to me, Emma. I'll know. How? Because I see you. He moved closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. Really see you. The way you press your hand against your stomach when it growls. The way you look at food like you're calculating if you deserve it. You've been hungry so long you've forgotten what satisfaction feels like. Tears burned behind my eyes. I blinked them back. I'm fine. You're not, but you will be. He pulled out his phone, typed something. Dinner will be here in 30 minutes. Go change. There's something on your bed. I didn't see. Look again. I went to the bedroom because arguing felt like more effort than I could manage. On the bed, laid out like an offering, was a dress. Simple, black, but clearly expensive, the kind of expensive I could recognize even without checking the label. Beside it, shoes. My size. How did he know my size? Because he knows everything, the voice in my head whispered. He investigated you. He knows your measurements, your habits, your fears. He knows you better than you know yourself. I changed because I didn't know what else to do. The dress fit perfectly, skimming my body like it had been made for me. Maybe it had been. The shoes were comfortable despite the heel. Leather so soft it felt like wearing butter. I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked elegant, expensive. Like she belonged here. She looked like a lie. When I returned to the living room, Dante had changed too. Dark slacks, black shirt, no tie, casual, but the kind of casual that cost thousands. He was setting the dining table, and the sight of him doing something so domestic was jarring enough that I stopped mid-step. He looked up, saw me, and went completely still. The silence stretched between us, heavy with something I couldn't name. His eyes moved over me slowly, deliberately, and I felt that gaze like a physical touch. Felt it everywhere. The dress touched my skin. Perfetto, he breathed. You're perfect. It's just a dress. It's not the dress. He crossed to me, and this time I did retreat, but he followed, patient and relentless, until my back hit the window and there was nowhere left to go. It's you, Emma. You could wear rags and still be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You barely know me. I know enough. His hand came up, fingers tangling in my hair. I'd left it down, hadn't known what else to do with it, and he tugged gently, tilting my face up to his. I know you're brave and selfless and so desperate to survive you'd make a deal with the devil himself. I know you're terrified right now, but too proud to show it. I know you haven't been touched gently in so long you've forgotten what it feels like. His thumb brushed my lower lip and I trembled. I know I want to teach you again. This isn't part of the arrangement, but my voice shook, betraying me. No, it's not. This is separate. This is choice, Emma. Yours and mine. I told you. I don't want unwilling partners. If I kiss you right now, if I push this further, it's because you want it too. So tell me. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath against my lips. Do you want it? Yes. God, yes. I wanted to forget everything. The fear, the debt, the desperation that had brought me here. Wanted to lose myself in the promise of his touch, in the safety his presence seemed to guarantee, even as every logical part of my brain screamed warnings. I don't know. That's not a no. His lips brushed the corner of my mouth, feather-light, testing. Tell me no, Emma. Say it, and I'll step back. We'll eat dinner like civilized people. We'll maintain professional distance. I'll be the perfect gentleman. And if I don't say no, then I'll kiss you until you forget every reason you think this is a bad idea. And then I'll feed you, because you need to eat. And then I'll send you to bed, alone, because despite what you think of me, I'm not a monster. I can wait. The elevator dinged, dinner arriving. Dante stepped back, the spell breaking, and I sagged against the window, my legs barely holding me. He paid the delivery person. I heard the murmur of voices, the rustle of bags, and when he returned, his mask was back in place, professional, distant, like the moment against the window had never happened. We ate at the dining table, Chinese food from a place I'd never heard of, served in real dishes because apparently even takeout got the royal treatment here. He asked me questions, safe questions about my degree, my favorite books, my plans for the future. I answered carefully, aware that every word was being cataloged, analyzed, used to build a profile he'd exploit later. But slowly, against my will, I relaxed. He was funny when he wanted to be, self-deprecating about his lack of formal education, clearly well-read, despite never having gone to college. He talked about art like it mattered, about books like they were friends, and I found myself forgetting, briefly, who and what he was. Until his phone rang. The change was instantaneous. His face went hard, carved from stone, and he answered in Italian, his voice dropping to a register that raised every hair on my body. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. Threat. Authority. Absolute control. This was the man behind the mask. The criminal. The killer. He stood, pacing to the windows. His body language screaming violence barely contained. The conversation lasted 5 minutes that felt like hours. And when he ended the call, he didn't turn around immediately. just stood there, silhouetted against the city lights, his hands clenched into fists. "Dante?" My voice sounded small. "Go to bed, Emma." He didn't look at me. "Please, just go to bed." "What happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about, nothing that touches you, but it did touch me. I was in his home, wearing his dress, eating his food. Everything that touched him touched me now, whether I wanted it to or not. I went to bed because I didn't know what else to do. Lay in those crisp white sheets, staring at the ceiling, listening to the murmur of his voice as he made call after call in Italian, in English, in what might have been Russian, orchestrating something, fixing something, destroying something. I must have slept eventually because I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover and the smell of coffee. When I stumbled into the kitchen, Dante was there, fully dressed in a different suit, charcoal this time with a burgundy tie, looking like he'd had 8 hours of sleep instead of whatever handful he'd actually gotten. "Good morning." He handed me coffee, prepared the way I liked it. Cream, no sugar. How did he know? "There's breakfast. Eat, then Giovanni will take you to Bergdorf's. Get whatever you need. Everything goes on my account. I can't." "You can. You will. I have meetings all day, but I'll be home by 8. We have an event tomorrow night. Charity gala, very boring, but necessary. You'll need appropriate clothing." "What kind of appropriate?" His smile was sharp. "The kind that makes men want you and women want to be you. The kind that reminds everyone that I can still attract beauty despite being what I am." "And what are you?" He leaned in, kissed my forehead like he'd done at Maria, chaste, almost brotherly, except for the way his hand fisted in my hair. "A man who protects what's his, Emma. Remember that." Then he was gone, the elevator doors closing on his back, and I was alone again in my beautiful prison, with instructions to make myself beautiful enough to be displayed. I went to Bergdorf's because I didn't have a choice. Giovanni accompanied me, a silent shadow who somehow made 5'0" me feel protected despite being terrified. Personal shoppers descended like vultures, armed with measuring tapes and opinions, and for 4 hours I was poked, prodded, zipped into dresses that cost more than my father's funeral. I emerged with enough clothing to fill the empty closet, with shoes and bags and jewelry I'd never wanted, feeling like a doll someone had dressed up to play house. That night, Dante came home earlier, 7 instead of 8. He found me on the couch, reading one of the books from his extensive library, trying to feel normal in this abnormal life. "Show me." He gestured to the bedroom, where all my new purchases hung like an accusation. I led him there, watched him flip through hangers with a critical eye, pausing on a gown the personal shopper had insisted on, midnight blue, backless, the kind of dress that required confidence I didn't possess. "This one," he said, "for tomorrow." "It's too much. It's perfect. You'll wear this. The diamonds I'll send over in the morning, hair up." He turned to me, his eyes intense. "I need you to understand something, Emma. Tomorrow night will be watched, photographed, judged. People will wonder who you are, where I found you, what you're doing with a man like me, and you need to look at me like I'm the only man in the room, like you chose me, like you want to be exactly where you are. Can you do that?" I thought about all the lies I'd told myself, all the masks I'd worn just to survive. "Yes," I whispered, "I can do that." "Good." He cupped my face, and this time I didn't pull away, because tomorrow the world meets my Emma, and I need them to believe you're mine. For 3 months, something flickered in his eyes, possessiveness, determination, something darker I couldn't name. "Yes," he agreed. For 3 months. But neither of us believed it anymore. The gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, because of course it was. Giovanni drove us in the Mercedes, now flanked by 2 additional SUVs full of men whose eyes never stopped moving, cataloging threats in every shadow. I sat beside Dante in that midnight blue gown, diamonds cold against my throat. "On loan," he'd said, though the way he'd fastened them himself suggested something more permanent, and tried to remember how to breathe. "You're shaking." His hand covered mine, warm and solid. "Don't be afraid." "I'm not afraid." Another lie. I was terrified. Not of him, exactly, but of what tonight represented. The moment I stepped out of this car on his arm, I stopped being Emma Cole, invisible waitress. I became Emma Cole, Dante Russo's woman, and in his world, that title came with a target painted on my back. Liar. But he said it gently, his thumb stroking circles on my palm. Listen to me. Stay close. Don't accept drinks from anyone but the waiters. Don't go anywhere alone. If you need the restroom, tell me and I'll have someone escort you. Don't engage with anyone I don't introduce you to first. And if anything feels wrong, if anyone makes you uncomfortable, you tell me immediately. Understood? You make it sound like a war zone. His jaw tightened. It is, just a prettier one. The car stopped. Through the tinted windows, I could see the red carpet, the photographers, the glittering crowd of Manhattan's elite climbing the museum steps like pilgrims approaching a temple. My stomach twisted. Emma. He turned me to face him, his hands framing my face with unexpected tenderness. You are the most beautiful woman here tonight. Not because of the dress or the diamonds or anything I bought you, because of who you are underneath all of it. Remember that. And remember, you're with me. That means you're untouchable. Then Giovanni opened the door, and suddenly we were in it. The flash of cameras, the shouts of photographers, the crushing attention of 1,000 eyes. Dante emerged first, buttoning his tuxedo jacket with practiced ease, and then extended his hand to me. I took it, stepped out into the glare, and the world exploded with light. Mr. Russo, who's your date? Dante, over here. Sir, can we get a name? Dante's hand settled on the small of my bare back, scorching against my skin, guiding me up the steps with the confidence of a man who owned everything he touched. He didn't answer the photographers, didn't acknowledge their existence, but I felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. Felt it dissecting me, judging, finding me wanting. Inside, the museum had been transformed into something from a fairy tale, or a nightmare, depending on perspective. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, champagne flowing like water, women dripped with jewels that could fund small countries, men wore tuxedos that cost more than cars, and everyone was watching us. Dante. A woman materialized from the crowd, all sharp angles and sharper eyes, her red dress clinging to a body maintained by personal trainers and probably surgery. I heard rumors you were bringing someone, but I had to see it to believe it. Katerina. Dante's voice went cold, his hand tightening on my back. Still hunting for your next husband? Her smile was poisonous. Still pretending you're something other than your father's son? The air between them crackled with history, with violence barely leashed. I stood there, caught in the crossfire, feeling very small and very young. Emma Cole, Dante said, pulling me forward. Meet Katerina Volkov. Her father and mine had business together. Before he died, tragically. The implication hung heavy. Before Dante killed him, or had him killed. The distinction probably didn't matter. Katerina's eyes raked over me, dismissive and cruel. How refreshing. You found yourself a pet. Does she do tricks? She does this. And then Dante kissed me. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't the careful, questioning kiss I might have expected for show. His hand fisted in my carefully styled hair, tilting my head back, and his mouth claimed mine with the possessiveness of a man marking territory. I gasped against his lips, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I forgot where we were, forgot Katerina watching with fury in her eyes, forgot everything but the taste of him, whiskey and mint and power. When he pulled back, I was dizzy. My lipstick certainly ruined, my careful composure shattered. Excuse us, he said to Katerina, his voice rough. We have people to see. He led me away, his hand still burning against my back, and I heard Katerina's laugh following us, bitter, knowing. Around us, conversation had paused, then resumed with increased intensity. Everyone had seen. Everyone knew. By tomorrow, my face would be plastered across page 6, speculation running wild about who I was, and how I'd caught the attention of one of New York's most dangerous men. I'm sorry. Dante steered me toward a quieter corner, away from the crowd. I shouldn't have. That was inappropriate. It was for show. My voice sounded strange, distant. Was it? His eyes searched mine, intense and hungry. I'm not sure anymore. Before I could respond, another man approached, older, distinguished, with the kind of silver hair that suggested wisdom rather than age. Dante, didn't expect to see you here. Thought you avoided Castellano events. Dante's entire body went rigid. Commissioner, I didn't realize the NYPD had started accepting invitations from men like Vincent Castellano. The commissioner, because of course he was police, of course Dante knew him, smiled thinly. Vincent's donated enough to the children's hospital to buy absolution for any number of sins. Unlike some people who think they can simply intimidate their way into heaven. I'm not interested in heaven. Dante's voice dropped to that dangerous register I'd heard on the phone. And you'd do well to remember that next time you're accepting donations from men whose hands are as dirty as mine. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Now, if you'll excuse us, I have better things to do than discuss theology with corrupt cops. He pulled me away before the commissioner could respond, his grip tight enough to bruise. Around us, I felt the shift in atmosphere, people moving away, creating distance, recognizing danger when they saw it. Dante. I had to almost run to keep up with his long strides. You need to calm down. Don't tell me what I need. But he stopped, took a breath, forced his shoulders to relax. I'm sorry. These events, they're necessary evils. Everyone pretending we're civilized, when we all know what we really are. And what are you? I asked. Even though I was afraid of the answer, he looked at me. Really looked at me, and I saw something raw in his expression. I'm a man who's done terrible things for what he thought were good reasons. I'm my father's son, even though I killed him for what he did to my mother. I'm the monster parents warn their children about. And I'm also... He stopped, his hand coming up to cup my face. I'm also a man who's starting to think you might be the best thing that's ever happened to me. My heart stuttered. That's the champagne talking. I haven't had any champagne. I never drink at these events. Need to stay sharp in case someone decides tonight's the night to make a move. He said it casually, like assassination attempts were just another Tuesday. You really think someone would try to kill you here, surrounded by all these people? His smile was grim. These people would sell tickets to watch. Half of them want me dead. The other half are waiting to see who'll kill me so they can make their allegiances accordingly. Then why come? Because absence is noticed. Weakness is exploited, and I needed to show you off. Needed everyone to see that Dante Russo can still attract beauty, still has something worth living for beyond power and money. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Needed them to see what I'd burn the world for, if they dared to touch it. A waiter passed, and Dante snagged 2 glasses of champagne, handing me one. Drink. It'll help. I drank, the bubbles sharp against my tongue, and watched him watch the room. His eyes never stopped moving, categorizing, assessing. Who stood too close? Who watched too intently? Who had their hand in their jacket pocket for too long? Living like this, I realized, would make anyone paranoid, or maybe the paranoia kept you alive. There's someone I want you to meet. He guided me through the crowd toward a man who stood apart, surrounded by a small circle of obvious security, younger than Dante, maybe 35, with dark hair and darker eyes, and a scar running from his temple to his jaw. Marco. Dante nodded, a gesture of respect I hadn't seen him give anyone else. Didn't think you'd make it. Had to see if the rumors were true. Dante Russo, domesticated. Marco's eyes found mine, assessing but not unkind. She's prettier than the photo. What photo? I asked. Then realized, of course there were photos. Dante had investigated me, probably had surveillance on me even now. The one from your Columbia ID. You looked miserable. Marco extended his hand. Marco Salviati. I handle the Boston territory. I shook his hand, noting the calluses, the way his fingers lingered just long enough to read my pulse, testing me. Emma Cole. I handle the terrified girlfriend role. He laughed, surprised. She's funny. I like her. Try not to get her killed, Dante. I'm tired of attending funerals. There won't be a funeral, but Dante's hand tightened on my back. Everyone knows she's under my protection now. Everyone knows. Doesn't mean everyone cares. Marco's expression sobered. The Volkovs are making noise. Katerina's father might be dead, but her brother's not. And he's got a long memory about who pulled the trigger. Let him remember. Let him try something. I'm ready. Are you? Marco's eyes flicked to me, because you've just painted a target on her back. Mikhail won't come at you directly. He's not stupid, but her? She's accessible. Soft. The perfect way to hurt you without risking a war. Ice flooded my veins. This was real. The danger Dante had warned me about wasn't abstract. It was Mikhail Volkov, and men like him. Men who'd hurt me just to watch Dante bleed. No one touches her. Dante's voice could have cut glass. I've made that very clear. Anyone who tries answers to me personally. Just be careful, Fratello. You're not thinking clearly, and that's when mistakes happen. Marco clapped Dante on the shoulder, nodded to me. Nice meeting you, Emma. Hope I see you again under less dramatic circumstances. He disappeared into the crowd, leaving us alone in a sea of people who wanted us dead. I want to leave. My voice shook, all pretense of composure gone. Please. I want to go home. Soon. But he pulled me closer, his arms wrapping around me in a gesture that looked romantic, but felt protective. We need to stay another hour, show strength. But then, we'll go, I promise. The hour crawled by like years. Dante introduced me to dozens of people whose names I immediately forgot, whose smiles never reached their eyes. I smiled until my face hurt, laughed at jokes that weren't funny, played the role of besotted girlfriend, while my mind screamed warnings. Finally, mercifully, we left. The car was waiting, Giovanni holding the door open, his scarred face impassive, as Dante practically pushed me inside. Drive, Dante ordered, and Giovanni obeyed without question. I slumped against the leather seat, the diamonds heavy around my neck, the dress suddenly suffocating. Take these off. I reached for the clasp, but my hands were shaking too hard. Dante's hands replaced mine, gentle despite their size, unfastening the necklace with practiced ease. Better. No. Nothing about tonight was better. You kissed me in front of everyone. You told them I was yours. You made me a target, and you didn't even ask if that's what I wanted. I know. He set the diamonds aside, his jaw tight. I know, and I'm sorry. But Emma, you need to understand. The moment you agreed to this arrangement, you became a target. The kiss just made it official. Now everyone knows that hurting you means war with me. It's protection, not a threat. It feels like both. It is both. He pulled me against him, and I went, too exhausted to resist. This is what my life is. Constant calculation, constant threat. And I've brought you into it, made you part of it. If you want out, if this is too much, I'll release you from the contract. Set you up somewhere safe, somewhere far from New York, where my enemies can't reach you. I should say yes. Should run as far and fast as possible from this beautiful, terrible man and his world of violence. But where would I go? Back to poverty? Back to invisibility? Back to slowly drowning in a city that didn't care if I lived or died? At least here someone cared, even if his caring came wrapped in danger and diamonds. No, I whispered against his chest. I'm staying. For the 3 months. I gave you my word. His arms tightened around me, and I felt him exhale, tension releasing. Okay, then we do this right. Tomorrow you start self-defense training. Marco's wife, Isabella, will teach you. You'll learn to shoot, to fight, to protect yourself when I can't be there. You'll have security everywhere you go, Giovanni during the day, others at night. You'll check in every 2 hours when we're apart. And you'll never, ever go anywhere alone. That sounds like prison. That sounds like staying alive. He tilted my face up, his eyes fierce. I won't lose you, Emma. I can't. Do you understand? I've only known you 3 days, and already the thought of something happening to you makes me want to burn the world down. So yes, it's prison. But it's a prison where you wake up every morning. That's the trade. I looked at him. This man who killed his own father, who terrified commissioners and made criminals bow, who held me like I was something precious and breakable, and realized I was in far more danger than I'd understood. Not from his enemies, from him. from the way he looked at me, from the way I was starting to look back. "Okay," I breathed. "Okay. We'll do it your way." He kissed me again, softer this time, a promise rather than possession. And I kissed him back, crossing a line I'd sworn I wouldn't cross, making a choice I knew I'd regret. But God, in that moment, with his arms around me and the city lights blurring past the windows, it felt like the only choice that mattered. The weeks that followed blurred together in a strange rhythm of normalcy and chaos. I started classes at Columbia. Dante had made good on his promise, pulling whatever strings necessary to get me reinstated mid-semester. I studied in the penthouse while he worked, Giovanni driving me to campus and back, always watching, always present. Isabella taught me to shoot at a private range in Queens, her patience infinite as I learned to handle weapons I'd never imagined touching. My hands stopped shaking when I held a gun. That should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like power. Dante and I fell into a routine. He'd come home, always between 7 and 8, unless something urgent pulled him away, and we'd eat dinner together, talk about my classes, his day, carefully avoiding the details of what his business meetings actually entailed. He never touched me beyond casual affection, never pushed for more than I offered, though I felt the restraint in every look, every accidental brush of fingers. I was falling for him. God help me. I was falling for a man who'd probably killed more people than I'd ever met. It was week 5 when everything changed. I'd stayed late at the library, buried in research for a paper on Victorian literature, and lost track of time. My phone had died. I'd forgotten to charge it. Stupid. So stupid. And by the time I emerged into the November darkness, it was past 9. Giovanni was waiting, his face carved from stone, and I knew immediately something was wrong. "Mr. Russo has been calling." His voice was tight. "For 2 hours. He thinks you're dead." Guilt crashed over me. "I'm sorry, my phone." "Get in the car. Now." The drive back to Tribeca was silent, tense. Giovanni's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and I realized he'd been afraid too. Afraid of having to tell Dante he'd lost me. Afraid of whatever punishment would follow. We pulled up to the building, and Dante was there, standing on the sidewalk in just his shirt and slacks. No jacket, despite the cold, his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. When he saw me, relief and fury warred across his face. He wrenched open the car door before Giovanni could, pulled me out with hands that shook. "Where the hell were you?" "Library." "My phone died. I didn't realize." 2 hours, Emma. 2 hours of not knowing if you were alive or dead, if Mikhail had grabbed you, if I'd find you in pieces. His voice cracked, and he crushed me against his chest, his heart pounding against my ear. "Don't ever do that again. Don't ever make me think I've lost you." "I'm sorry." I wrapped my arms around him, feeling him tremble. "I'm so sorry." He held me there on the sidewalk, oblivious to the cold, to Giovanni waiting patiently, to the doorman pretending not to watch. When he finally released me, his eyes were raw with emotion I'd never seen before. "I can't do this anymore," he said roughly. "Can't pretend this is just an arrangement, just business. Emma, He stopped, jaw working. "I need you to understand something. What I feel for you isn't rational. It's not safe or healthy or anything good men feel. It's obsession, possession, the kind of feeling that makes men do terrible things, and I'm trying so hard to be better than my father, to not cage you the way he caged my mother. But every time you're out of my sight, I imagine 1,000 ways to lose you. And it makes me want to lock you away where nothing can ever touch you. That's insane," I whispered. I know it's insane. That's why I need you to tell me now. Do you feel anything for me? Anything real? Or is this still just a transaction? 3 months until you're free. I should lie. Should protect myself, keep the distance necessary to survive this. But looking at him, this powerful, dangerous man reduced to vulnerability by the thought of losing me, I couldn't. It stopped being a transaction weeks ago, I admitted. Maybe it never was. Maybe from the moment you caught my wrist in that restaurant, I was already lost. He kissed me then, desperate and claiming, and I kissed him back with everything I'd been holding in. His hands were everywhere, my hair, my face, my waist, pulling me closer like he could absorb me into his skin. When we finally broke apart, both breathless. He rested his forehead against mine. "Come upstairs," he murmured. "Let me show you what you mean to me. Let me worship you the way you deserve." I should have been nervous, should have hesitated, but I'd been waiting for this, wanting this, since that first electric touch. "Yes," I breathed. "Yes." The elevator ride felt endless. He kept touching me, gentle, reverent touches that promised more. When we reached the penthouse, he led me to the bedroom, and this time when I saw that massive bed, I didn't feel lost. I felt claimed. He undressed me slowly, each revealed inch of skin receiving attention. Kisses, touches, whispered words in Italian I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. When I was bare before him, he looked at me like I was art, like I was everything beautiful he'd never dared hope for. "Perfect," he murmured, laying me back against those white sheets. "You're perfect, Tesoro." I reached for him, pulling him down, and he came willingly, covering my body with his. The weight of him felt right, safe, despite the danger he represented. He made love to me like he fought, completely, intensely, holding nothing back. And I shattered in his arms, crying out his name like a prayer. After, he held me close, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "I love you," he said into the darkness. "I know it's too soon, too much, but I do. I love you, Emma Cole." "I love you too," I whispered back, and felt him exhale like I'd given him absolution. We fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time since my father died, I felt safe. The gunshot woke me. One moment I was dreaming, warm and content in Dante's arms. The next, he was throwing me to the floor, his body covering mine, shouting orders I couldn't process through the ringing in my ears. More gunshots. Glass shattering. Dante's weight disappeared, and I heard him returning fire. The sound deafening in the enclosed space. I crawled toward the bathroom, my training kicking in. Find cover, stay low, survive. But something grabbed my ankle. A man. Not Dante. Not Giovanni. A stranger with dead eyes and a gun, dragging me backward. I screamed, kicked, remembered Isabella's lessons and twisted, bringing my heel up into his face, bone crunched. He howled, his grip loosening, and I scrambled away. Dante appeared, his face a mask of rage, and shot the man twice, chest and head, efficient and brutal. The body dropped. "Emma." He pulled me up, checking me for injuries with shaking hands. "Are you hurt? Did he—" "I'm fine. What's happening?" "Mikhail. He's making his move." More gunshots from the living room. "We need to go. Now." He grabbed clothes. His shirt, my jeans from the floor, dressed me with swift efficiency while keeping himself between me and the door. Then Giovanni was there, blood on his face but alive, laying down covering fire while Dante pulled me toward the service elevator. We made it out of the building through the basement, emerging into an alley where another car waited. Dante shoved me inside, Giovanni taking the wheel, and we tore through Manhattan streets at speeds that should have been impossible. "Where are we going?" My voice sounded strange, distant. "Somewhere safe. One of my properties outside the city." Dante's arm was around me, holding me tight. "I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry. I should have seen this coming, should have protected you better. You did protect me. You covered me with your body. I almost got you killed." His voice was raw with self-recrimination. "This is what loving me means. This is the price." I thought about that price. The terror, the violence, the constant threat. Thought about my old life, safe and small and slowly dying. Thought about this man who'd kill for me, die for me, who looked at me like I was worth burning the world for. "I'll pay it," I said firmly. "Whatever the cost. I'm not leaving you, Dante. Not now. Not ever." He kissed me desperately, tasting like fear and love and promises we might not live to keep. We drove for 2 hours, finally pulling up to a house in the Catskills. Remote, heavily secured, surrounded by men with guns. Inside, Dante made calls, his voice cold and controlled, as he orchestrated whatever vengeance he planned for Mikhail. I sat by the window, watching the sun rise over mountains. and realized I'd never felt more alive. The fear had burned away something in me. The last vestiges of the girl who'd thrown herself across a table to save a stranger's suit. That girl was gone. In her place was someone harder. Someone who'd looked death in the face and chosen love anyway. Dante found me there as dawn broke fully, his phone finally silent. He looked exhausted, older, the weight of his world visible in every line of his face. "It's done," he said quietly. "Mikhail won't bother us again, neither will anyone else. I've made it very clear what happens to people who threaten what's mine." How clear? You don't want to know. He was right. I didn't. Some things were better left in the darkness where they belonged. "Come to bed," I said, extending my hand. "We're both alive. That's enough for now." He took my hand, let me lead him to the bedroom, and we fell into bed together, not for passion this time, but for comfort. For the reminder that we'd survived, that tomorrow we'd face whatever came next. 3 months had passed. The contract was up. I could walk away now, take my money and my finished degree, and build a life far from this violence. I didn't even consider it. "I'm staying," I told him as we lay there, his heartbeat steady under my ear. "Not because of the contract or the money or any arrangement. I'm staying because I love you, because this insane, dangerous, impossible thing between us is the realest thing I've ever felt." His arms tightened around me. "You'll marry me," he said. Not a question, a statement of fact. "Soon. I need to know you're mine in every way that matters." That's not a proposal. It's a demand. I'm not a man who asks for what I want, Emma. I take it, but with you. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. With you, I'm asking. Marry me. Be my wife. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting you, loving you, being better than I am because you make me want to be. I should think about it. Should consider the implications, the danger, the life I was choosing, but I'd already chosen, really. Had chosen that first night when I picked up his card instead of throwing it away. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promises, and as the sun rose over the mountains, bathing us in golden light, I realized this was my ending. Not the fairy tale ending I might have imagined as a girl, but something better, something real. I'd thrown myself across a table to save a stranger, and he'd caught me, saved me, loved me. And in loving him back, I'd saved something in him too. The part that remembered how to be gentle, how to protect instead of destroy. We'd both been lost. Now we were found, and if the price of that finding was a life lived on the edge of a knife, surrounded by danger and darkness, I'd pay it gladly, every single day.